Getting unstuck is my superpower. So let me define stuckness. Stuckness is when you're living a life that isn't in alignment with your goals. Circumstances, whether it could be in your love life, your career, your finances, your health, it's not the way you want things to be. So when you're stuck, something's wrong.
What does it take to put your life's work out there in a really big way? How much can I do with this one precious life? Welcome to The Selfish Gift.
For those of us who are lucky enough to have experienced a big transformational change in our personal or professional lives, it's so natural to want to share those insights with other people. And many of us consider maybe even developing a career as a coach or a guide to help other people experience that same kind of transformation in their lives. But few of us have the courage or tenacity to actually follow through on that vision. My guest today has done exactly that, and she's here to tell us what it was like for her as a first-time author. Shira Miller is the author of Free and Clear, Get Unstuck and Live the Life You Want, which features a step-by-step process for getting unstuck and staying that way for good. Shira is a 2-time TEDx speaker, a certified professional coactive coach. I really want to know more about what that means, Shira. And she knows a lot about getting unstuck, which she's going to share with us today. She has written over 100 articles on Medium, LinkedIn, and Thrive Global about well-being at work and at home. And her work has been recognized in Shape, Health, First for Women, and lots of other publications too. Shira, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Maggie.
And of course, I just want to let our listeners know that, Shira, you and I know each other because my company, Wonderwell, is the publisher of your book, Free and Clear. So just a little context there. I know a little bit about your story, but I can't wait to hear you, walk through your experience as a person who has dived deep into her gift and is sharing it with the world. What is it about getting unstuck? What does that mean to you?
Getting unstuck is my superpower. So let me define stuckness. Stuckness is when you're living a life that isn't in alignment with your goals. Circumstances, whether it could be in your love life, your career, your finances, your health, it's not the way you want things to be. So when you're stuck, something's wrong. And you could be stuck in multiple areas of your life. When I talk about stuckness, it's something I know a lot about.
I have been talk to me about your own personal transformation journey.
Well, I have been stuck and unstuck so many times in my life. The first major unstuckness actually took place 30 years ago. I lost a significant amount of weight in a very healthy manner and started living a much healthier life. And then over the past few decades, I found lasting love after 2 divorces. I had a major business failure during the Great Recession. I bounced back from that, ended up getting quite sick. I had Crohn's disease, and now I'm living in a constant state of wellness. And I really redefined my career to live a purpose-driven life.
Wow, that is so impressive because any one of those areas could be, super vexing and challenging. What is the common thread that runs through them all? I mean, those sound like really different problems, and I, would imagine they have different solutions. But what is the common thread that runs through all of this for you?
It's a sense of seeing what's possible and then giving myself permission to make the changes. Once I see the road ahead can be better and more fulfilling.
So that's super inspiring. Tell me about how do you work with people to help them get unstuck in their lives?
I've got a whole process that people can follow, but the first step is really gaining clarity about what you want your desired state to be in life. And when I say desired state, that could be the absence of struggle or a life filled with joy. And you really need to take a pause and get clear about your circumstances. Because, especially these days, we are tethered constantly to smart devices. People are on 24/7. And when you're constantly on the go, you can't accurately assess what's going on in your life. You need to take a pause.
Mm, mm. And how do you deliver this to people? What do you do private coaching? What are the actual sort of vehicles through which you share
There's
this work?
multiple ways. It's shared through the book. I do a lot of speaking, so I'm educating audiences that way. I do a lot of writing. I will have educational courses in the future that can take people through this process. But there is universally some steps that everyone can take to get the best results. So honestly, everybody should take a pause and assess where you stand. I've actually got a quiz that's called What Kind of Stuck Are You? And you can figure out, take it. It's on my website, shiramiller.com, and you can figure out what kind of stuckness you face and then how to deal with that.
What if I'm stuck in a bunch of different
Even
areas?
more opportunity to gain happiness. Let's look at the upside, okay?
That's a good way
Then you pick the one that feels the most prevalent. You go through it first. When you feel like you're in a great place, then you go back and you tackle the next thing. And that's exactly what I've done over the decades.
So you've said that you really want to normalize making well-being and self-care a priority to help people thrive. What do you think what have you found gets in our way of taking care of ourselves?
One of the biggest barriers is the belief that self-care is selfish, which is ridiculous, because if you don't make yourself a priority, you can't take care of anyone else out there. And that sometimes is a stigma from people who are pleasers and need to get their validation from constantly being there for others. So it can be something that you feel like you're going to be judged by others if you take a break or make yourself a priority, but it's essential. And what I mean by self-care, it doesn't just mean going to a spa or going to the gym. Self-care is doing things on a regular basis that bring you joy. It could be binging the entire season of Stranger Things over the past weekend. If that truly is what floats your boat, and I got to tell you, it's a really good season. So it could be a combination of efforts, but it's you recognizing that, putting it in your schedule, and making time for those elements.
It's so important, Shira. And I think that women or people who've been, raised in a female gender identity can particularly struggle with this. And even really the way that it's framed as like, fill your own cup up so that you can help others is sort of like, okay, the end result is my value is in what I can do for others, rather than one of the things that I know was helpful for me to reframe this is to care for myself as much as I am encouraged and naturally want to care for other people. So like, what about Maggie? Like, where are her needs getting met? And, and we're praised when we put ourselves last, right? We're consistently praised for going without, giving up the last piece, sacrificing essentially. So this is a really, really big mindset shift that I think so many people struggle with.
I agree. And it's interesting. There's such almost a delay mentality that, okay, I'll do this. I'll take care of these people. I will put my job first. And really the question is, when is it going to be my turn? And the answer is now.
Yeah. Or we train ourselves to be satisfied with the scraps, right? Like once everything is taken care of, like whatever time is left over or whatever energy or attention or resources are left over, then I guess I can kind of sneak my needs in. And that is it's such a depleting way to go through life. So I imagine that, are your clients and the people that you coach dealing with a lot of burnout? I mean, this is where this leads, right?
Burnout was really looming large before COVID-19. The pandemic took it to a new level of people feeling out of control, just at the end of their rope. And the boundaries that people had with work, with giving to others, got so blurred during the past couple of years that burnout has reached crisis proportions. And even though in many parts of the world, things have opened up. We've been vaccinated. We have been boosted. There's still a sense that we constantly need to be creating. We need to be doing. We need to be giving. And we need to be caring for ourselves first.
Yeah, and you did some research, right? You interviewed a whole bunch of folks over the course of preparing to write your book. So, what were some of the patterns or themes that emerged in that?
I found there are 7 things that typically get people stuck. I can give you a few examples. The first one is something I call "you don't do you." And that's when you're not authentic. You think you've got to assume a certain set of behaviors or create a persona for yourself that is less than accurate in order to be accepted.
I can relate to that so much. And again, it's this idea of what are the expectations that are on me? And I'll be safe. I'll be good if I'm meeting those expectations. And then we just lose sight of ourselves along the way. Okay, give us the other.
Sure. I'd be delighted to give them in order. Actually, the second one is something I call "you're on a road to nowhere," and that's when you don't know what your purpose is in life. And when you don't have those as guide rails, it's really hard to have the clarity to know what you want to be doing, whether it's in your personal or professional life.
Yeah. And life purpose is such a big kind of present topic for people. I think everyone's talking about it these days. And I know, especially amongst, the younger set, there's a lot of almost anxiety around kind of like, how do I find my purpose? Or a sense of like, I'm supposed to choose a purpose. And what if I pick wrong or I change my mind? So how do you deal with that road to nowhere question?
Okay, purpose anxiety, as you started saying, is huge because everyone feels this burden.
Yeah.
And in essence, we're born with a purpose, whether we know it or not. But the beautiful thing is it can change as we change and grow. And your purpose is your reason for being. You get to define it. So giving yourself...
I love that you said that it can change and grow over time. So do you think that that's, is that... Where does it come from then?
Your purpose is from your outlook on the world, what you're passionate about. What do you want your give back to be? What do you want your influence to be? And it can filter out through a work setting. It can filter out in how you are a humanitarian. It could be, and I think about my mom. My mom's purpose, my mom is 84 years old, was to raise a loving family. Faye Miller did a damn good job with that. So it could be, let's say that you've got a pattern in your family of people don't go to college. There's a lot of struggle. People, and you're the first one that changes it. You get a good education, and then you start volunteering with Boys and Girls Club. You're a role model for the rest of your family and future generations, encouraging people to reach for more. We all have the ability to be catalysts for change in that way. And so it's however we define our purpose.
And I suppose there's so much emphasis on impact and what am I doing? I think the really key thing to bear in mind is that the reason that that these activities are your purpose is that they're gratifying.
Exactly. It's a purpose isn't something that you do to impress other people or get dates. A purpose, it fills you with joy.
Okay, great. What's number 3?
Number 3 is you don't consider forgiveness. And this really is on 2 tracks. It could be forgiving other people who have wronged you in some way. But even more importantly, the person who's your people are most loath to forgive is themselves. I mean, you can hold such a grudge that can really hold you back in life. I mean, I'm talking for an entire lifetime. That's something you don't forgive yourself for. And it could be really hard.
Yeah, that 3 a.m. voice that sort of says, oh, you messed up, you should have handled this differently. You let that person down, disappointed yourself, whatever. It's just that can be really, really pernicious and hang over us for a long time. So what kind of solutions do you offer in terms of how to move through forgiveness of self or others?
I help people realize that forgiveness is a gift that they give to themselves and help them see what they can do with it. Journaling helps a lot with it. when you can take different circumstances and take the personal out of it, and understand it's important for your own healing. I look back at an example in my own life, and I had a bad divorce back, 1999. And I didn't realize how I was holding on to being angry at myself for making a bad decision. And it took years. I remember 4 or 5 years. And a therapist I was working with said, why don't you start writing down over the course of 3 or 4 days how many times you have a negative thought about yourself with relationships or trusting yourself in dating? And unfortunately, I had 4 pages filled. And I went, okay, this is too much. And then, I spent time working on myself, letting go of that, redefining and caring and loving for myself so I could figure out, here's who the person I love, who is me, and what does that mean for someone who could make me happy in the future? And with that perspective of forgiveness, was able to find lasting love.
Amazing. And which is, not something that you would necessarily feel confident about after 2 divorces. I'm in that club too. Still waiting for the lasting love. Anyway, let's move on. What's the next item on your list?
The next item is you don't trust yourself. And that is self-doubt. You lack confidence. You question yourself. This one is my albatross, the one that I've had to work so hard for. And if I ever have, an area where the inner saboteur, that negative voice, as you said, the 3 a.m. voice pops in your mind, it's around questioning myself. And that's a really hard one.
Do you mean questioning your decisions, your motivations, your inherent worth? Like where does the trust
all
break
of
down
the above
for folks that you've spoken to?
It can depend on whatever your circumstances are. Even in the process of working on the book rewrite, and I had the best editor in the world. Thank you for that. I would sometimes wake up and go, is this worthwhile? Is this going to make a difference? And I'm so thrilled with how the book turned out. But, I had a couple of weeks in there where it stopped me in my tracks. And I had to drink my own Kool-Aid and do some of my own exercises to get unstuck again in that area.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to dive deeper into that, and we will go there in our conversation. Let's keep on with your list of these roadblocks, these places where people get stuck.
So number 5 is something I call "You're a Debbie Downer." Now you remember Saturday Night Live, Rachel Dratch's character. Debbie Downer was the family member who would ruin any joyous occasion with, might be making a toast at a wedding and bring up feline AIDS or blood diamonds. And that's a person who, when given the choice between optimism and pessimism, chooses pessimism. Not only do you see the glass is half empty, that sucker is cracked, it's leaking, it's beyond repair.
It's full of poison. There's everything wrong with it. Why do we do that?
There's a lot of different reasons. It could be from the way you were raised. It could be from a desire for control, to think if I say the worst scenario is going to happen, at least I can be right. It could be from fear. A lot of circumstances.
Okay. What's so we're at number 6 now?
Number 6 is that you're not flexible. And that's an inability to change or pivot once you're in a direction. And that can really paralyze you at certain points especially when you've been on a certain course for a long time.
You mean like you kind of like committed to a failed strategy and doubling down on
yes.
Yeah. What was that saying, that if you're speeding toward a brick wall, you don't want to accelerate?
Well, that's a really painful way to go if you're going to. Yeah.
Right.
Ouch.
Okay. And number 7
is something I call you're shipwrecked. And that is when you don't have a support system. And within that, it could be that you are isolated. Obviously, during the pandemic, that became a huge issue for so many people. Or you're willing to help others, but you don't accept help yourself. And that also can isolate you in many ways.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Well, where you're just kind of like depleted and checked out, and you're just sort of done.
Yep. And you become in a funnel, almost a silo. You're not sharing your thinking. You're not getting the perspective or support of others. You could just, be having a couple of bad months, and you need to talk it through with others who can help you remember that you're creative and you're resilient and you're going to get through it.
So thank you for outlining. So this is basically the content of your book, and it was derived from these interviews that you did and the analysis that you did, as well as through the lens of your own life and what worked for you and what has worked for the people that you coach and counsel. How has the reception to the book been now that you're out there, sharing it widely with the world that way? How does it feel to see these ideas expressed and out there in the world?
It makes me speechless, which, if you know me, I'm a big talker. That is amazing. I am overcome with gratitude. The positive reception, I'm getting emails from people who have read it and told their friends to read it or buy it for their child who just graduated from college, or a friend who is, gone through menopause and now needs to reinvent her life. Or it's amazing to see the ripple effects already from this. And it's really gratifying. This is my mission. The book is a major delivery vehicle for it. And it's a beautiful, life-affirming experience.
It's amazing. I mean, when you were talking earlier about purpose, of course, this is what I'm thinking in the back of my mind, is that through going through these experiences and having these conversations, helping other people to navigate these points of stuckness has emerged as your life purpose. So you're living it now, and it's out there in public. So the reception has been good. And talk to me more about that. And if you wouldn't mind, like, really speaking to some of the concrete effects in terms of opportunities, or the impact that you're seeing. Like, how I love hearing about the anecdotal feedback and encouragement, but how has this changed your life, and how do you hope it will continue to change your life?
The book is in many ways a calling card for even more opportunities. I've spoken before a number of audiences. I have given 2 TEDx talks, but what the book does is it allows me to go to a bigger playing field as a keynote speaker for compensation. So it is a beautiful enabler of those opportunities. It will create more opportunities for me to do consulting work for organizations that are looking to have a culture that's based on free and clear. You can be such an established thought leader, but there's something about a book, especially a really good book, again, thank you, with the help of Wonderwell, that elevates what's possible for you and your brand and creates the credibility to take you to the next level. And that's what Free and Clear has done for me.
I'm so pleased to hear it. And I remember, Shira, even in our earliest conversations, this is something that mattered a lot to you. And it's one of the reasons that we, really were excited to work with you. In this day and age, I certainly meet a lot of people who want a calling card book, but unfortunately, very often I meet people who underestimate the importance of the quality of the book. They just think that, like, let's get it done fast. Let's get it out there. I've even had people say to me, I don't even expect anyone to read it. I just want to get it out there. And that's just, I think, such the wrong approach, because of course a book, once it is published, it's not a website that you update on the fly. It is, it's a static, long form piece of work that needs to be done really, really well. So talk to me a little bit about your thinking when you were embarking on this, and your concern and commitment to not just getting it out, but getting it done great. So talk to me a little bit about that.
That is why I wanted to work with Wonderwell, because your editorial quality was head and shoulders above anyone else that I spoke with. I wanted it to be a book that I was really proud of, that shared my ideas and helped me advance my personal mission. People are going to read your book. And it's funny, let's go back to the word calling card. A calling card isn't just an introduction. People are going to read it and they're going to judge the quality of your thoughts and your brand and how you're trying to make a difference in the world by it. You want the book to be the very best incarnation it can be. So it is worth all of the work that you're going to put into it. And because of it, it's something that's transformative and it lives beyond you. The fact that as we're doing this interview, my book came out last month, that I'm having so many people who I have absolutely no contact with, who are finding the book, who are hearing about it. You're reading about me in an interview and they're communicating how it's impacting their lives. That's my mission. So it's much bigger than an enabler.
And that's exactly it. Yeah. And it's exactly, it's changing, it's affecting their lives. And that's, I think you put just the right point on it there, because I think that too many, yes, it's important to think about what it will do for you. And you're absolutely right that, of course you want people to read the book. Of course they're going to read it. Why else would you write a book? It's not just a little chiclet that you put in your email signature with, a picture of a book cover. It is, it's an ambassador for your ideas, and it has to be the very best representation of those ideas. But fundamentally, even more important than that, or the part that really matters is the change that it will make in the life of your reader. So if it doesn't create change for your reader, then it has not been effective. And I think that it's a lot of people approach writing a book from a short-sighted perspective, really forgetting to think about their reader. So what have you, to give us a little bit of a taste of, like, I don't know, testimonials or feedback that you've already received from, and you're only 1 month into your, since your publication date, but what kind of like reviews or feedback have you heard from actual readers so far?
The first one that comes to my mind is a woman, I think she's in her late 20s or 30s, reached out to me, sent me an email after reading the book, sent me a picture of her copy that had all of these multicolored Post-it notes on it. She clearly is an A student, and was referring to a couple of things within it that resonated deeply with her, and talked about how, she was going to apply this to help her get unstuck in her career. It's just interesting. People are reaching out and asking questions. Something that I think's been interesting, and I've been lucky enough to be interviewed on other podcasts, before or after each podcast interview, I'm finding hosts are asking me about circumstances in their own life. They're like, okay, I read this. I'd like to ask about this exercise that, you have given me, to create the reverse bucket list. I want to ask about that. How do you think this can help this situation? So it's the more people I'm encountering, they're asking for advice. And this is just the beginning. So I'm really just excited.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. Yes. Okay. So, well, now that you've teased us with it, let's hear about the reverse bucket list.
That's one of my favorite exercises. I love talking about this one. So, you know what a bucket list is? It's a list of things you want to do in life before you kick the bucket, before you die. So for some people, it could be travel. It could be learning a foreign language. It's so many different things. In a reverse bucket list, you build trust and confidence with yourself by listing things that you've already done. And it could be, I put myself through college. I raised a wonderful daughter. I was able to change a family pattern of drug addiction. There's many things that could be on this list. One woman I interviewed for the book, I'm just thinking of this story. She was faced with a trifecta of loss. Her beloved father died. She went through a horrible divorce and lost her job all within 6 weeks. I mean, that's damn, right? Okay. That's a lot.
Oh my goodness. That would just take you out.
And in her case, what helped her, she took a whole summer. And she was determined that she was going to grow grass on a lawn that experts said nothing would ever grow on. So she worked with, she worked with landscape experts, and damn it, that's what she spent the summer doing. And when the grass when it grew, that just showed her, I can create something positive. So on her bucket list, it was that summer of growing grass when people said it wasn't possible. So when you see that evidence, it shows you that no matter what you're facing, so I encourage people, put as many things as you can on that reverse bucket list. It will transform what's possible for you because it is your credentials. It's your proof. I've got this. I'm going to get through this, and I can do so much more.
That's so empowering. I mean, as you were speaking, I'm doing a bit of a mental inventory myself. And I never do that. I never think about, what I've already accomplished, what I've already done in life. We're always focusing on what's missing, what's next. So I love that exercise. So as you were writing the book, Shira, you talked a minute ago about experiencing some jitters, some self-doubt through, the editorial process. Tell us what that was like for you to write this book. You had to be very vulnerable and candid and really put yourself out there. So let's talk for a minute about your experience of writing.
Okay. So when I wrote the first draft of the book, and this is before I met you, I wrote it, COVID struck. I went, oh, okay, my book's about people getting unstuck. I'm going to have to rewrite this, go all in on COVID, had that ready. And then I was lucky enough to have conversations with you and realizing that the book really needed to be more the process of getting unstuck. That was going to be a best service to the reader. And I saw that. And that's why I wanted to work with Wonderwell. I went, this is so much better than it would be. So in committing to it, I also have a full-time corporate job. I am a chief communications officer at a $2 billion company. I'm throwing that in because that's not a 20, 30-hour week venture. I'm already a busy person, but we needed to have timelines. You have to have deadlines and make things happen. And I just assumed, okay, I've got a professional editor working with me. I can work hard and I'll make this happen. It was such a sea change that I let go. Ego-wise, I had no problem with that. I was like, this is better. This is the right way. But it was making sure that I could write it to the right level, that it would be good enough to meet my expectations of helping others. And the editor I worked with, Jessica, was tremendous. I felt like, and I'm about to be a total nerd, okay? I felt like we did a Vulcan mind meld, if you know Star Trek, that, okay,
I do.
See, we're having a nerd moment, that she really took the time to understand what I was trying to do, my messaging, helped me get focused on a process and an outline and got me and got it. And so it'd be like, okay, we'd come up with an outline and I'm the writer. So I would go back and work on it. And then it would be like, I don't want to disappoint Wonderwell. I don't want to disappoint future readers. Can I do this? And I just felt overwhelmed at a couple of different points. Now, I remember breaking through by just doing it and letting go of the need to be perfect, because I'm like, this is a substantive edit. There's multiple chances to make this great. That's why I've got an editor. Create the copy, and then we'll work on it again. We'll work on it again. So letting go of the need to be perfect helped a lot. It really did. So, and I just, I saw it as a continuous process.
Yeah. No, it's scary. And I have to say, I don't think I've ever worked with an author who didn't at some point hit some kind of wall in terms of their confidence in order to, their confidence in their ability to go the distance and meet their own expectations. There's always a point when an oh shit moment where you're just like, what have I got myself into?
That's exactly.
Like, for everyone. So how did you, I know you said that you just powered through by powering through, just by keeping on doing. What did that actually look and feel like?
So, I'm glad that you want to clarify that. For me, because I start anything with well-being, I drank my own Kool-Aid. I journaled. I have a morning practice where I get up, I listen to a meditative recording, I'll journal a bit, I exercise, and this usually takes place, by 7:30 in the morning. So doing all of that and focusing on the reverse bucket list of everything else that I had accomplished helped me a lot. I would go back and look at my own evidence and look at, the good articles I had that were published elsewhere and realize that, this is just the process. And I'd focus on, wow, I'm learning how to be an even better writer. In some ways, I almost looked at it like a grad school too.
Yeah. Good for you. It's it's so uncomfortable to be in the messy middle. It's so uncomfortable. And I think that, I think that this is true for any creative project. I also am a hobbyist painter. I'm an, amateur painter. I like to paint sometimes. And whether it's a painting or a piece of writing that I'm working on, or frankly, any kind of creative project, something I'm, I'm sewing. There's always a moment where I go, ooh, what have I done? Like, this isn't, there's the excitement, the burst of enthusiasm that you have at the beginning where it's so perfect in your mind. And then those early steps are encouraging and you're like, yay, this is going to be great. And then that bit in the middle where it all just is kind of a mess, can be so demoralizing and hard to work through. And I think that it's only once you've walked through that process and got to the other side where like, oh, this is starting to gel. Now it's looking and feeling good and polished, and then the joy of completion. But that messy middle, you cannot stop. Like, you cannot. It's almost like driving through sand dunes. I don't know if you've ever driven through. You can't stop, right? You can't stop in the messy middle where the ground is slippery or there's deep gravel or mud, because you'll just spin your wheels and not get going again. You have to kind of gear down and keep going. I can't believe I'm doing like a sand dune driving metaphor. That's so not me.
No, but I get it. I mean, you'll get stuck. No one, AAA isn't going to tow you out of that. So yeah, you just got to keep going.
Right. Well, and good for you I love that you reminded yourself of your past accomplishments that were related to writing. So going back and looking at those articles that you had written that were good and you recognize the quality in them, I think that that's a great practice for anyone who's struggling with a big writing project and feeling demoralized halfway through. Because honestly, when you're, like I said, when you're halfway through that edit, it's going to look ugly on the page. It's going to look, it's that famous Anne Lamott phrase, the shitty first draft. And in your case, it wasn't the first draft that was uncomfortable necessarily. It was that big substantive edit. And that's super common too. So just to backtrack and be clear in case listeners missed this point, but Shira, when you came to us, you had a draft manuscript and we ripped it apart and rebuilt it from the ground up, right? We went right back to taking the house back to the studs, this is like, no, let's look at the way the chapter structure is organized, identify what the real takeaway for the reader is, rebuild it and then go almost from scratch. But it wasn't, you used the pieces that you had written, but organized in a different way, strung together differently. And then there was new writing needed as well to kind of bring it all together. Isn't that right?
That is absolutely the process. So again, from it, you need to check your ego at the door.
Yeah, super humbling, right? To kind of go like, oh, I thought this was ready for, a proofread. And like, no, we're going to go back to basics. And it sounds like, you just were so courageous in that. And it's a much better book for it. What can you tell me about your actual physical writing process? Did you have a favorite place or a specific time of day? Did you go in long bursts or short bursts, or what did writing this book look like for you?
So, and I'm going to talk about the rewriting of it during the substantive edit. I'm a morning person. I do my best writing in the morning, but I also had to navigate around the demands of my corporate job. So if I had a board meeting, if I had different things going on, but in an ideal day, I would write for a couple of hours in a chunk. I tend to find that after 3 or 4 hours of writing at a time, I lose my effectiveness. So, try to get it out in that burst and then start again the next day. Now, when the deadlines were approaching, it got a little crazy, and there was probably a month in there where I just wrote all the time. And, I needed to. We had the deadlines. At the same time, my husband and I had bought a new old house, and we're in the middle of a renovation. So it was crazy. It was a really crazy time. So I would as for a place in the house that we live in now, we converted a dining room is my office in the home. And I'm someone who is very in touch with this energy of my space, meaning I like it to be decluttered. I like to have inspirational art that I look at. And I didn't get that. So I would, if I was in the office writing, I in our corporate office 3 days a week, my office was very clear and was a little bit easier to write in because of that. But definitely in the mornings and on the weekends, I would get up a little early and work on it, before I would head to the gym. And that's my time. I know I'm the opposite of so many night owls who have their lives and then boom, they're going to be writing late. I cannot. I am an idiot really after about 8 o'clock at night.
Me too, me too, me too. I'm right there in the early bird club with you. I am useless in those post dinner hours in terms of any kind of like creative work. I can do research, I can email, I can, but I cannot generate anything of quality. But that, yeah, like you said, that's not true for everyone. Some people have I know a writer who stays up until he's a journalist, not a book author. Well, he is a book author too, actually, but his favorite thing is to write until 3 in the morning.
God.
And I'm just like, okay, no.
That sounds horrible. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay. And so, so you worked in 2 to 3 hour chunks and you were in your dining room, which wasn't quite set up the way that you would have loved, but obviously it was effective for you. You had a schedule, you had deadlines, and you stuck to them. What about the emotional dimensions of this writing process? You mentioned earlier about, feeling unsure just about being under pressure, but you also share really vulnerably in this book. You're talking about Crohn's disease. You're talking about your own sort of moments of the appearance of failure or kind of like setbacks and low points. So what came up for you as you were revisiting all of that and preparing to speak about it publicly?
A few years before the book, I started sharing all of those vulnerable parts. I had a podcast interview back in, I think it was early 2019, where my gut just said, talk about Crohn's. When I was talking about the business failure, I was really, really private about that. And I found after we posted that on social media, on LinkedIn, I got hundreds of likes. People were sharing the story. It was so encouraging to others to be authentic. I went, okay,
wow,
this is my sign. It's resonating with people, and became the basis of my first TEDx talk, 5 Ways to Let Go of a Dream. So I found it's really of service to be authentic. It lets people be themselves. They understand that they can have a really fulfilling life no matter what obstacles or challenges they face. So I had done the emotional work around being vulnerable on that for reliving certain things when I was writing it in the book. 2 things. First of all, it was almost like I'm going to say an analogy of a time machine. I felt as I was writing it that I was going back in time to Shira, going through oh my God, I'm sick. Oh my God, I'm getting divorced again. Oh my God, my business is failing. What the hell am I going to do now? And like I could send myself a hug back in time going, girl, you got this. It sucks now, but your story, it's going to help you grow and it's going to help other people. So, I did a time machine like hug sent back to myself. And I also have a really good.
And then you get to go like, spoiler alert, it works out in the end. We're going to be okay.
Yay, look at this. So I did, I've been like that. I almost like to send myself little hugs back in time. And I leaned on my friends. I've got wonderful friends.
Yeah.
I've got also a group of friends who are authors or thought leaders. So when I would start really doubting myself, there are 2 in particular who are successful authors, and I would talk to them and they're like, oh yeah, at that point, my brain was mashed potatoes for a month, or, getting the perspective from others who had lived through this. And I was like, really? You dealt with that? And they're like, oh my God, Shira, we all do. So that helped too.
Yeah. And just like you were saying at the beginning of this conversation, normalizing it. And, I think that we often, we're so hard on ourselves and we think that we know other people struggle, but we shouldn't have to. Right. And then when it happens, it just is really, really, encouraging to actually have that community around us. And, aside from the actual writing of the book itself, just in terms of your journey, you mentioned that you have this big corporate job. How did you transition into, okay, I'm going to be transformational coach and a thought leader. What was the genesis of that decision, and what was it like to step out in that new direction?
It came in different stages. After I had the business failure and I had to keep working with, servicing all the PR clients on my own for 4 years and paying off debt, I've always been interested in human potential. And I became a certified coach. I'm a certified coactive coach from CTI, Coaches Training Institute. And the whole basis of that is that people start out, they are consciously whole. People are creative. And as coaches, we empower them to figure things out. So we're a mirror to help. We're not someone to go in and, totally steamroll through it. We're assuming people have the necessary tools that we help with. So I got that certification before I went back into corporate, and I made the decision I wanted to find a job that would allow me to impact culture. And I had a lot of naysayers say I couldn't do it, and I ignored them. And I was able to create a job that gave me all of that. So in thinking about it, 2018 was really the year that I decided to bring things together. I got promoted at work. I was an EVP and I got promoted to communications chief. And I had a conversation with my boss, the CEO, and said, I'm really interested in writing a book, in writing and speaking, and want to talk to you about all that. And he was great. I think he looks at it as, a way for me to grow personally and professionally while, as long as I'm continuing to do a great job here, which I am. So that's, I was just really above board about all of that. And so he's been a really good cheerleader on it as well. And enlisting, friends, my executive coach, all of my support with it. So I figured out that the best way for me to make a difference was to do things that would have a maximum impact. While I have coached a number of individuals, it's best for me to create educational content that can help many people at once. And that's one of the reasons I created the book. We'll be doing more educational offerings in the future and focus a lot on speaking.
So speaking and corporate clients, so speaking to groups as opposed to individuals.
Yeah, it's taking a megaphone and helping a lot of people at once.
What I really love about your story, Shira, is that instead of it was certainly a pivot in your life and in your career, but it wasn't like you jumped, like you kind of parachuted out of one thing and into another. I see it more like strands of a braid that you wove. Here's this new strand that I'm going to weave into my career braid, and that you integrated it with your day job. It wasn't like a side hustle or something that you were going to make a sharp left turn. Which I just think is so wise. I think that a lot of people struggle with this, should I leave corporate and do the thing that I'm really passionate about? And it's just super impressive that you found a way to dovetail those two things.
There's a lot of pressure for people to make dramatic moves, but I have found that you don't have to go big or go home. You can make a series of small, steady steps that get you not only where you want to go, but can help you exceed it in the long term. And you can do it in a way that isn't disruptive or creates a lot of, for the lack of a better term, suffering. You can create what you want as long as you're strategic and patient and persistent. You've got to, I'm work a lot between my job, writing, speaking, but it brings me a lot of joy. So it's worth it.
And you've had some support along the way. I know that you've talked a little bit about you had a brand strategist that you consulted with that helped you to think about how to achieve this. Can you tell us about that?
I don't know if you've heard of Dory Clark. She is phenomenal. She's a best-selling author. She is affiliated with some of the top business schools in the country. And Dory, I met with her back in 2018, did an individual consult to figure out what was possible for my brand, and became part of her recognized expert group of thought leaders. And that group has been phenomenal. There are probably 500 of us. I've interviewed a lot of people. We have become friends. A number of people, share stories. And that has been a sustaining source of not only support, but inspiration.
And that's another piece of it that I hear a lot of the more successful thought leaders and authors in this space talk about is the community, and it goes beyond of friends and family are important. You talked already about your strong friend circle and how meaningful and necessary that is, but it's also really, really important to access professional, mentorship, support, guidance, and to join some sort of group, mastermind group, community, whatever it is, where you have other folks that are on a similar path to yours, where you can encourage each other along. Do you think that was a big part of what made this possible for you?
Absolutely. I needed to find other birds of a feather. I needed people who wanted to change the world in their own way, many of whom were working on books, who were interested in the same kind of things that, we could brainstorm ideas, share resources. So with the launch of my book, there were about 10 people from the Recognized Experts group who I'd interviewed, or they were cheerleaders along the way. And I've done the same with theirs, books as they've been published. Some of them are coming up, and, it's a different kind of friendship when you are so aligned in those kind of goals.
Totally different. And it's a peer network at that point, and you can share information with each other and inspiration, encouragement that's really specific to the challenges that are right in front of you at that time.
So true.
So what's next for you? And I know the book just came out, and we're not trying to say like, okay, that's done, but like, what's on your plate right now for how you're going to continue to amplify the message?
I'm working with a public relations firm, and they're generating some really great national media opportunities for me. So I'm in the middle. I'm doing a lot of interviews. I've been doing a lot of podcasts. I have social media support that I've gotten for the past few years. So I'm concentrating on that element. I'm starting to figure out the paid speaking element for getting keynote speeches, and something I'm going to be teaching myself a lot more about this summer. This is my, summer learning project that I'm creating for myself, is to learn more about Amazon advertising, because I know that's next to really start triggering book sales. So I will be learning about that over the next couple of months as well. And those are the next immediate steps in the growth of my brand.
And how have you decided where and in what way to build your platform? I think you're primarily focusing on LinkedIn,
LinkedIn
right?
has been where I've focused on for social media. That's where I've got most of my followers. I think not Pinterest. I think that Instagram is totally fun, and I love posting things on it. I have like 500 people on that. When it comes to LinkedIn, I'm close to 20,000 people. It's my audience. It's my birds of a feather. It's people who who want the kind of content I've got out there about well-being at work and at home.
And you're not trying to be everywhere, which I think is really important. So, Facebook, Twitter, are those part of your strategy? And who helped you to kind of decide where to focus?
I work with a social media consultant named Marie Incontrera, and we've been working together. Gosh, Dory Clark referred me to her. So it's been almost 4 years now. And she's the one who helped me figure out what to focus on. So her team, I create all the content. They make it look pretty. We've got a good posting schedule, and she'll tell me, like I'm focusing, I've got a LinkedIn newsletter that comes out every 2 weeks. And within a month, I had 2,600 people signed up for it. So that's
remarkable. It's really great.
I'm very excited. That's the place to focus. I give as little attention as possible as Twitter. I just got burnt out on Twitter during, all the political upheaval. I'm just like, nope. I don't want to go there. And on Facebook, I think everybody needs to have a business page or, a brand personality page. And we post there too, but personal Facebook's where I keep up with what's happening with, people I grew up with or family members,
Yeah, me too. I think because Facebook was the OG social media platform, for me, Facebook is really a place where I'm in conversation with people I actually know. And yeah, I have lots, there are people following me on Facebook, but it feels like more of a personal space. And I always counsel authors to think about how they want to show up in each of these spaces and whether they need to be there at all. So I think that your strategy to focus on LinkedIn because it's really aligned with your audience and your content, and just to not sweat it about trying to be everywhere, is really, really good advice. And, it's too much. I think if you're going to try to be big on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all the blah, 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 it's just, there are some personal brands who do that, but that's a lot of work and it may not make sense depending on who you are and where your audience is.
I agree. I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be at this point in my brand evolution.
Fantastic. Well, Shira, can you tell us, for those who, we're going to put your contact information in the show notes, but for those who are listening and not interested in going to the show notes, tell us where we can find you on all of those places.
The best place to start is my website. It's Shira, Shira, Miller.com. On social media, you can find me in most places at the Shira Miller. There was another Shira Miller, so we added the. Just put that in and you can find me.
She's just a Shira Miller. You're the Shira Miller.
It sounds like we're starting a turf war, but hey, I won. Yay.
Right.
By putting the on there. And that's the best place to find me. Free and clear. Get unstuck and live the life you want. It's available on Amazon and many other platforms. And that's where I am.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so very much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate your openness and your courage. You're just such an inspiration and a great role model for so many people who want to take their positive transformational life experience and amplify that and share it with others.
Well,
thank you, Shira.
And thank you for all the tremendous support you gave me at Wonderwell.
I really hope this conversation has inspired you to give so much of your gift to the world that it expands you into your greatest possible version of yourself. Remember, it's not selfish just because we also benefit from it. And here's where I get to make a selfish request. New podcasts need all the help they can get. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate the show and subscribe to us on your favorite platform. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Selfish Gift Podcast. And send me a DM. I'd love to hear how you're sharing your gift with the world.